This webinar has been organized by ISB Center for Business Markets, also referred to as ISB CBM. The center provides a platform for collaboration between industry and academia in the areas of marketing and sales. ISB CBM is committed to helping organizations based in India and Asia find innovative next generation pathways to grow their business profitably, especially in the era of rapid change that is the reality for today's world. The mandate for the center is to get research output which is focused on practice and also conduct workshops on topics relevant to marketing and sales. Allow me to introduce our speaker, Professor Sundar Bharadwaj. Professor Bharadwaj is a Coca-Cola Company Chair Professor of Marketing at Terry College of Business, University of Georgia, and Senior Research Scholar at ISB. He has held visiting faculty positions at the Wharton School, Cornell University, HEC Paris, Indian School of Business, Singapore Management University, and BI Norwegian Business School. His research focuses on current and long-term returns and risks to marketing investments in brands, customers, innovation, and marketing strategy. He was listed among the 50 most productive research scholars worldwide in the AMA journal for the decade 2009 to 2018. His research have been recognized for journal and conference awards from the American Marketing Association, Academy of Marketing Science, Institute for Study of Business Markets, and Product Development Management Association. Professor Bharadwaj has held brand management and sales management positions in multinational corporations. He also has executive education and consulting experience. He serves on the Academic Council of the American Marketing Association. Before I hand it over to Professor Bharadwaj, I would request the participants to keep sending their queries in Q&A section. We will be taking the questions after the presentation. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you very much, Ashta. Thank you very much to ISB CBM for giving me this opportunity to talk about our research on this topic of building the modern marketing organization. So this title is Your Marketing Organization Ready for What's Next? It's really thinking about building a modern marketing organization. And the reason for why this is necessary is simply because the nature of marketing has changed. There's lots of traditional marketing skill sets, capabilities, and requirements that still reside, activities that still reside. But along with that, a whole host of new capabilities and skills have emerged in the last less than a decade, I guess, time period with the advent of mobile and machine learning and analytics and big data growing so dramatically. The nature of marketing and in a digital environment, the nature of marketing is dramatically changing with the addition of all these sort of skills. Right? And the interesting thing about this is that it poses phenomenal challenges for the modern marketing organization. And many organizations have looked at these sets of things, and some of them are flavor of the day, some of them are flavor of the week, and some of them are flavor of the month and year. But a lot of them get embedded along with sort of traditional marketing skills. And the way companies have started to handle them is to say, can we create these sort of separate teams? There's teams for media, teams there are MarTech teams that companies have, a content management team, a channels team, a customer journey team, a social media team, a performance marketing team, just examples of the nature of teams. So they've created all these various verticals that they keep adding to the existing structure and trying to make them all work together in some sense. And an interesting thing is that people that are required to run these different sorts of groups within the marketing organization are people that come from really, really different backgrounds. Some of them have sort of traditional social science training, and they come through the world of advertising and integrated marketing communications. Some of them come all the way on the other end. They come from computer science backgrounds, and where the conversation is more about pixels than they are about target markets. And they're coming from that place and starting to run performance marketing teams. And these teams need to sort of coexist in organizations and work together and work to be operationally efficient and big, and more important yet, deliver value for the marketing function and for the organization. Let's say profitable growth, revenue growth, whatever the goals are of the marketing function, they need to deliver for them, and they have to coexist. It's kind of very challenging for these organizations. And sort of one metaphorical way of thinking about this is This is what a current marketing organization looks. All these different functions co-mingling with very different labels, very different expectations. And what's different about this and from say 10, 15 years ago, marketing was a lot simpler. We clearly knew what roles and what functions marketing did and what goals they needed to achieve. And that has changed. And companies have added new skills, new capabilities, and eventually it looks like this situation where these functions sort of interface and don't interface very well and operate very inefficiently as a marketing organization. Right? So which basically, this frustration was there, something that we saw a lot when we talk to managers. By the way, this talk today is based on research with a large number of companies, 120 plus companies, both from B2B and B2C, from tech and not non-tech, traditional legacy companies and direct to consumer companies. So lots of research that's gone through with our team with this research. And what you do find is a bunch of observed tensions that managers allude to. Some of them said, I thought I knew my role, but the blurring of lines and the need for collaboration, really creates confusion. We now have loads of data, and now what? We've got this data coming in real time from consumers, from individual consumers, very disaggregate level of data. The more we interact with them directly, what do we do with them? How do we utilize them? The other big claim that people have is, tech is eating strategy. So we have all these technologies, these guys who are coming in with people coming in with machine learning, AI capabilities and skills and statistics training and so forth. And all this data is coming in, and it feels like, technology is eating strategy, and there's really, we don't know where we are going. And which bell and which whistle, given the whole variety of skills available, that capabilities and skills are available to managers, which ones do I use? How do I use it? When do I use it becomes an issue. And marketing is divided. You've got the brand team and you've got the performance marketing team, and they feel like they're in totally different camps. They come from totally different universes, have different thought worlds, have different training, have different orientations, different perceptions of what strategy is about. That's an issue. Issues of what should we keep in-house and what should we outsource. Those are big challenges. How do I measure? Brand safety is emerging as a big issue. How do I keep my brand safe in today's social media environment where it might show up in places where I don't want to do? And with programmatic types of methods to communicate and advertise and so forth, companies are losing control of the brands. And the biggest sort of challenge that companies will face is that the sense that they're adding more and more capabilities and not really changing. So really it's adding verticals and it's just becoming this mess that we talked about before. And so not really changing is a big issue. So these are big tensions that you feel in marketing today, in the sense that marketing doesn't add value to an organization. So it's the fact that we need to figure out what the structure is, what skills are necessary, what changes we need to be made. Those are all very important questions. But what we contend is that how we go about getting there is should be very different. So from our research and from our take, from analysis of what we have done, and from our take, is that what companies really need to do is to figure out what is the mission of marketing. So how does a marketing organization add value to a firm? So they need to sit back and think about what is the strategy, what is our goal, how do we add value to the firm. Once that has been defined very, very clearly, then they can go back and decide, what capabilities are needed to deliver on the value that we as an organization, what's unique about us, how are we different from other organizations, what's the value that we seek to deliver. And then you can go from there to decide what capabilities you need, and from there think about what structure, what skills, what technology, what culture, and so forth, all of which are critical to make these different departments, different functions work together to deliver on the mission or the strategy that the firm has decided in terms of creating value for the marketing organization. So we are flipping it. Most organizations will think about the lines that they want to draw. How do we situate these different functions? Which ones are capabilities are required, and so forth, and then work your way through and to figure out, given the structure, given those capabilities that we have, given the skills that we have in the organization, what strategy we can deliver. We are saying let's flip it around, step back as managers, as business people, to think about how does marketing add value to the organization, and then work upwards to think about what capabilities and what skills and what structure and what technologies we need to sort of build to get there, right? So that's sort of the way a modern marketing organization should sort of evolve. So think about this. First, selecting your mission. What should be your mission of the marketing organization? That sort of, I think, is your first step. And from there, we'll talk through this portion about assessing your fit and designing for the change. So companies need to come back and step back and think about the mission. And what we have done through our research is to think about six different ways in which a company can decide what its mission is. Three of them are customer facing, and three of them are company facing missions. So I'm going to start with the customer facing mission, or the ways in which a firm can create value. And we think the three ways in which the company can sort of create value for the customers are through what we call exchange value, where essentially what firms try to do is to design products and services that match the unique needs of individual level customers, right? Whether you're B2B or B2C, the ability is to come up with a whole spectrum of options that that clearly match. And here you companies do it through leveraging machine learning, big data, coming up with sort of offers that match extremely well. So you're clearly creating a personalized, customized offer for the customer. The second way in which companies can create value for its customers is through delivering great experiences. That is going across the journey the customer is taking with the organization, all the way from way before pre-purchase all the way to post-purchase journey, to think about what hassles, what pain points, how do we sort of minimize those pain points so the relationship and the journey is enjoyable for the customer, right? So you're delighting the customer through that process. And so how do we design organizations that sort of do this? The third approach that you can create sort of value is by engaging. And in here we define it as creating sort of meaning for the customer. And what we mean by meaning is that it's not just from an affective sense, but it's from a very, very cognitive, conceptual sense, is to think about what's a broad spectrum of product categories, services, solutions that your product can stand for. Does it have the permission or the rights to sort of deliver across the organization? And this may extend all the way down to the purpose that you might have as an organization to see how you create value for customers and their influential sort of stakeholders that might be relevant. So what do we do through the process so that will enable the company to sort of grow? So you can think of this as exchange value as a means by which you create a personalized, customized sort of offers to customers. In many cases, it could be even at some level or automatic. So if you see a lot of these platforms that we see today, the offers are predominantly automatic as well, but it could be human centered as well. And the second approach is how do we create convenience for the customers, really create convenience for the customers through creating experiences that are terrific through the customer journey. The third is how do we sort of grow the customer in terms of looking at new revenue opportunities, new business models, and grow the customer through creating broader meaning for your firm and your offering set across categories, across solutions, across and so forth, right? So three different mechanisms or means by which you can create value for the customer, and it's not as if that you need to do all three or just one or two or three. In different firms over a time period as a part of the mission, and this is not like 10 years out or 15 years out, or the next 2 years has to decide what should be the mission of the organization. How do we create value? Do we become an exchange focused organization or an experience focused organization? And to some extent you can think of this to let me walk you through some examples to get a sense for this. Chobani, by the way, is a dairy product company which primarily started with sort of yogurt, Greek yogurt, and the Turks would argue it's actually Turkish yogurt that Greek is getting the label for. So yogurt that they came up with, and they primarily focused on meaning and engagement. They dove deep on the relationship with the customers and built this product that also had this purpose of helping workers, and many of them were migrant workers and so forth that came into the organization, and they built a relationship through it. And using this meaning, now they're expanding into various other categories beyond yogurt. One is just varieties of yogurt, but since then they've gone into other categories, into milks and non-dairy milks and so forth, that they've expanded and grown the organization through that process, right? Another good example would be to looking at experience value. Most of us are not traveling now. This is not the best period to give this example, but if you look at an organization like Delta, there are many organizations and they have B2B and B2C customers flying through sort of Delta, and Delta is a good way of thinking about how they have minimized the pain points that customers typically face through the journey, and they leverage it through their digital sort of interface with the customer, and the mobile app is a good example of that. And initially we could just sort of look for flights and perhaps at best book a few flights, but they have now extended it to beyond to say how long, if you've got a flight that day in the afternoon, how long does it take for you to go to the airport? What's the traffic situation to get to the airport? Once you get to the airport, how long are the lines in the airport for you to go and do check-in? If you're checking in either through a kiosk or if you're checking through a physical location, how long are those sort of lines? Is my bag checked in? So you can track and see if, where your bag is on the flight, whether it's been offloaded, if you're taking these multiple linked flights and so forth. Inside the airport, they'll tell you where's the nearby coffee shops and so forth. So and which is right close to your check-in terminal. So lots of different things which are sort of pain points that the customer had to solve themselves. They are all sort of taken away, and the app guides you through that whole process to get the overall experience that you're traveling much simpler. You can pre-order your food before you get on the flight through the app, so that you get the food that you want. Lots of times you get on flights and the food that you're looking for is missing, and here you could pre-order those sort of foods. You can get a sense for what kinds of entertainment is available. All these sort of things which are part of the customer journey are sort of being covered. And you can think of this in other contexts as well, where companies sort of, Caterpillar, for example, a large corporate, industrial equipment manufacturer, sort of also uses the CAT app, and I'll talk a little bit more about it later as well. The CAT app to sort of monitor usage across customer through this product, and how to sort of leverage and get the maximum out of the product offering. So literally the experience of the journey. And the third way to think about this is to think about what JustFab, which is basically a clothing manufacturer. I'm sure there are lots of other manufacturers of this sort in India as well. A clothing manufacturer which basically uses machine learning and algorithms and AI to sort of, with lots of data, to deliver very specific offerings for hundreds and thousands of clients that they have mixed offers for. And many times they're atomized, and they specialize in finding what's uniquely needed for the customer and creating the right offering at the right time. And many times these are also curated offerings that are provided to customers. So literally there are three different ways to think about this. It's not that, we decide that we want to be exchange, we want to be experience, we want to be sort of engagement focused, but you could also think of this in terms of what do customers really sort of want, right? And think about what weights you sort of provide. And here are some examples of how companies sort of specialize in. So Chobani, for example, is very heavy engagement focused. So you can think of this as saying they're sort of majoring in engagement, and they have sort of minoring on experience and sort of exchange. Or it could be a very transaction-oriented company like JustFab, where they're primarily about exchange. They're about creating unique offers and thousands of unique offers for customers, and then sort of trying to make that whole process experience. They're very little about engagement. Or you could be at the other end, you could be like Heineken, which focuses on exchange and engagement, and sort of less so on the others. So companies have very different approaches, whether they're branded platforms or branded sellers or experienced sellers. The importance, this is over the next 2 years, as far as their mission is concerned, how they create value to the customer may vary. So you may specialize in one and sort of minor in the other. So major in one, minor in the other, major in two, minor in one. So there are different forms in which companies sort of take over the next 2 years. And so you don't have to sort of decide it for yourself. You can also go back and see what weights do your customers sort of put on these different benefits that the value creation provides, right? The idea of personalization through exchange or convenience through experience, or through meaning through engagement. So you can go back and figure out how much value do customers sort of put through these aspects. And this is data largely from the US, from a large sample of customers that we did this study on, 46,000 odd customer combinations that we have looked at to get towards these utilities levels. And what you do find is, on the x-axis is actually the age of the customers. On the y-axis is how important the marginal utility the customers value in terms of these sort of attributes. And what you find is convenience is sort of relatively common across these sort of different age groups of customers. And you could have the x-axis of company sizes, large, medium, small, and so forth. You could decide that as well if you collect data at that level. And what you find is convenience is relatively common and fairly similar across these sort of age groups. Personalization is a little bit lower than convenience, but again, also relatively stable. What you find interesting is about meaning, which varies dramatically as you go with age. So it's a lot more important to younger folks, lot less important to older people as well, as more mature consumers exist. They're a lot less important. And this is at a very, very broad level. And you can go back and look at it across different sectors. And there are various sectors here, from all the way from financial services to sort of consumer retail to sort of looking at hotels and personal care, so consumer products and so forth. And we have a whole spectrum of other industries as well. And these are just for illustrative purposes here. And what you find is the importance of these attributes completely varies across sectors. So some sectors convenience is important and very important and continues to be important, and it varies by age. There are other sectors in which you have seen these sort of crossovers. So, for example, if you look at consumer product categories, meaning is more important and relatively more important than convenience and personalization. Then you may have other sectors where convenience is the most critical thing and personalization is less so. So you get these sort of variation across the sectors, and that might guide you into deciding how you're going to create value. Are you going to be sort of exchange focused? Are you going to be sort of experience focused or engagement focused? Which is your major, which is your minor? Maybe driven by what your consumers sort of value in terms of the benefits that they're seeking. And these are all benefits over and above your sort of traditional benefits of price, availability, and so forth. The standard sort of benefits that we've seen all the time that consumers seek. So over and above these, consumers are seeking these newer forms of benefits of convenience, personalization, and meaning in terms of product categories, right? So the important thing to remember is that these different structures that you're thinking about in terms of value creation will change over time. They're not sort of cast in stone, and organizations will sort of transition to build more and more capabilities as they go over time. They start by specializing in one say engagement, and over time they may build these other ways to create sort of value. So lots of traditional legacy firms, they sort of many times focus on engagement and then transition towards building capabilities to experience and exchange. The D2C companies that start out by doing a very good job of exchange and building that exchange sort of pathway in terms of these are digitally native and they're direct to consumer companies, they start at that end and they start transitioning, saying maybe we need to start building engagement capabilities, build a brand, build more meaning to consumers so that we can grow across categories as growth pressures come in. They may transition. So they will change over time, but where they start may vary depending upon the consumers, depending upon the nature of who you are as a business. So that's sort of the transformation you sort of see. So essentially, this allowed us to sort of think about this whole area of mission or strategy in terms of this framework of 6 different ways to create value. 3, as I said, on the consumer side that you just saw. So through exchange, through experience, or through engagement, and we talked a little bit about those experiences. There's also firm side value. So the marketing organization is it's important the marketing organization think of itself not just as creating value for the consumers, but also trying to create value for the organization. And the way to think about this is how can we create strategic value for the organization? And traditionally, this has been about saying, no, how can we enable the growth? It's through creating new products or moving to new categories or creating through new channels. But increasingly, there are opportunities to create through new business models, to looking at new revenue streams, to extend into service and solution offers that are more long-term and beneficial, and to enable and leverage the install base and the ecosystem that the company might have. So that's one way to think about strategic sort of value. The other way to think about this is to think about in terms of knowledge value, where here fundamentally what you're thinking of is, traditionally marketing has been sort of the voice of the customer. And so it's always been the notion that, you do understand customers. But to a large extent, marketers have been sort of utilizers of third-party information. So you would either use an agency or an organization to help you collect data and learn about customers, or if you're in the consumer packaging industry, you may have some scanner data available from again third-party suppliers like Nielsen and so forth may provide you, and so you're being user of data. But what increasingly has happened now is that because of more and more direct interaction with customers through all of this, and the fact that the capabilities of big data and the capabilities of machine learning and AI and analytics and so forth reside in the firm, you could create whole new source of intelligence and knowledge, whether it's a B2B company, in which case you have tracking devices and telematics and RFID chips built into your offerings, which are in remote sort of places that can then enable and advise customers on how to optimize and maximum usage, and becomes new revenue streams for the organization as well. So you could create a whole bunch of knowledge value, which creates new opportunities for new products, new ideas, and new ways to generate value. And the third way that you can create value is operating value. And I'll spend again a little bit more time on it because this is a really big challenge. So the fact that companies have these whole spectrum of new capabilities, as we started out with, sort of suggests that separating them out into small groups of small departments and so forth are very challenging, simply because, as we said before, people are coming from computer science background, social science background, to very different experiences and training, and from where they're coming from, their view of how strategy and world works are very different. So the cultures are different, the way you operate are sort of different. So literally, marketing no more is sort of a department, but really is a coalition. And coalitions need to be sort of made to work together to be operationally efficient. So we need to start thinking of how do we link these organizations today together, rather than immediately draw lines and arrows from there. What are some behavioral sort of KPIs, not just sort of traditional KPIs, but what are some behavioral KPIs that need to be put into place so that organizations can smoothly work together across all of these functions. So you can create value by these three means as well. So let me spend a quick little moment here to think about this. So let's think of these two providers. Both are operating in the space. Gillette, everybody knows, most been there for a long period of time since the early 1900s. So very established firms, sold indirectly, usually sold through distributors and through retailers that consumers eventually sort of buy. Harry's comes into the market and sells. It's a D2C company, sells directly to the consumer, doesn't go through these sort of channels. But what has emerged over time is that Gillette has gone in and decided, okay, it's going to go in and also sell directly through customers as well, and through Gillette on demand. Harry's is gone through an indirect model evolution as well, and driven out and so used through Target and other large retailers being selling to customers. So the issues in the old world, adding a new channel or a new channel that was being sold was fairly relatively simply straightforward. But in today's new world of selling direct to consumers versus selling direct models, creates enormous operational asymmetry in these organizations. They're totally different. The indirect model is very slow. You ship products to a distributor who ships it to a consumer, to a retailer, and then eventually gets to a consumer. It's a very slow sort of process. A direct to consumer process now is immediately direct to the customer. It's very fast. The business model is very fast, quick. You get orders coming in, product get delivered. Sometimes you have to predict what the customer is going to have, get the product there before the consumers are ready to even order. Think about this. The nature of data through which you operate in the old world is you had only, if you're selling indirectly, it was only through well, not just the old world, today's world as well. When you sell indirectly, it's you need to really had market level data, segment level, sector level, geography level data is what you had. Whereas in the direct to consumer markets, you have consumer data, rich disaggregate data, the level of the individual consumer, the way you sort of promoted the products as well used to be more vertical, one promotion at a time. Now you're consistently on all the time. You're running thousands and thousands of A/B testing experiences all the time to test which one sort of works. So it's more horizontal. Other capabilities, what capabilities did we outsource? For example, the traditional model, you said, okay, advertising was outside the firm, maybe promotion experts are outside the firm, and so forth. The event management was outside the firm. We had some capabilities inside. But in today's world, these D2C companies, many of these capabilities, that market research firm are outside. Now all these analytic capabilities are all in the firm. The capabilities are in-sourced in there. And also the strategy, how we sort of sell is very, very different. From the indirect model, the idea was you had to create the brand, build the brand, the brand will then enable the sort of sale for you. Whereas in the direct to consumer business, you have a situation where you first have to sell, get the product in the lives and the usage of the customers, and then build the brand based on their experiences with the product. So there are very different sort of approaches, creating enormous amounts of tension and asymmetry in the organization, and which is why the culture, the technology, the people, and how you structure becomes very, very, very critical for these organizations. On the knowledge end of things, the ability of the organization to sort of build the sensors, build the signals, build the systems to bring in the knowledge into the organization, so constantly and real time and in huge velocity becomes very critical, and that becomes easier for the company to build these sort of closed loop systems, and that enables you to sort of move from a world where you're just sort of primarily in the world of looking at it in correlations to a world where you can look at causation, where you can identify and look at complete attribution models in the organization, so you know what works, what doesn't work, how does it work, how long does it work. All of those different aspects become very important. Illustrative is this sort of freestyle machine that Coca-Cola has. Traditionally, it was just a vending machine. Now what we have is real time, because consumers mix products in different ways to consume. We have real time feeds on consumers' purchase behaviors, what mixes are popular, what are they creating, and Coke, and over a period of time, has launched a large number of new products based purely on data coming back on consumers' actual behavioral approaches on how they mix these different products together and consume, just created them whole new product categories that they're getting into. So it's not only about being a data user. Now companies increasing their data generators themselves because of this sort of experience, and that's how companies can create knowledge value back in the organization. Talked about Caterpillar and Cat, and in the use of telematics, which goes beyond just tracking value equipment. For a lot of these companies that are widespread around the globe, tracking equipment itself becoming a big challenge, and then looking at utilization so that you can optimize utilization levels for these companies, for the technologies they have. And these are millions and millions of dollars. Some of them are $1 million products, cumulatively adding to millions of dollars. So how do we leverage these assets that we have to get the maximum returns from them. All of them is through knowledge value, where you can help the customer become more successful, better utilize their resources, better utilize their capabilities to get there, and think of that as creating knowledge value. So fundamentally, what we did through all our research and so forth is to put together this framework where there are three ways in which you can sort of create value for customers, three ways which you can create value for the firm, and that's the essential structure and how to think about how marketing sort of add value to the firm. So we then blow up these, really comprehensive work that done. So we can now blow up these six values into 18 broad categories of sub value, three under each one of them. For example, if you're looking at exchange value, it's about prediction, personalization, and conversion, largely driven by machine learning and AI kinds of technologies and big data that you can utilize to sort of do this. And it sort of varies depending upon on the level of capabilities. And in fact, we have taken these 18 capabilities further and broken them into a large set of 72 individual capabilities. And this, to our knowledge of looking at the literature and looking at what's seen in practice, is probably the most comprehensive assessment of capabilities that organizations are required. So 72 different capabilities that then lead to these 18 different subgroups that lead to the six broad categories of value that we have talked about. And to give an example of illustration of how this sort of works, and we've been working with companies to sort of to test and do this, and this is constantly evolving. This is not like a one-shot deal for us. We are consistently doing research to upgrade and do this, but this is a fairly good set to talk through the process, right? So here's a technology company, and what we have is the outer, I don't know if it's orange or pink ring outside, the outside flame is really what is important to the company to deliver their growth objectives or revenue objectives or profit objectives they're trying to achieve. So what is important for those attributes across all these six dimensions are in the pink. The one in light blue on the inside is how well are they performing those attributes. So, for example, in this technology company, B2B technology company we're working with, they're really strong at delivering in terms of experience value for their customers. So they are able to sort of design the organization. They're pretty close to 80-90% fit as far as knowing what is important and doing really well. But there are other attributes in the organization which are important, but at this current stage, they are not right there. Either they don't think it's that critical right now, or they're going to develop in the future, but there are gaps that they have in their fit in terms of what they can achieve in the future. But on things of experience value, which is where they're weighting very heavily, it looks like they're doing extremely well currently, but provides opportunities to look at where they could extend in the future and grow further. So give you a counter example. This is a CPG company. In this instance, you have a very different structure. This company does a very good job. Engagement value is important to them, and they do a really good job of getting there. The fit is not as great as the technology company we saw earlier, but fundamentally they're very strong on the engagement value. They're much weaker on other dimensions that are important to them. But those are things that they need to evolve in the future. So literally, you can look at a measurement across these 72 capabilities, micro capabilities, to go back and look at what's important to you and how well you do. To extend this sort of idea further, we look at it in terms of fit. And it's important to see it in terms of fit as well. The idea of fit is not particularly new, but evolving in terms of capabilities. I think it's important to think in terms of fit. There's quite a bit of research in the idea of fit itself, organization fit to the marketplace and so forth. But where we are looking at here is, how important it is for your objective, strategic goals that you have, your mission for your organization, and how well do you perform on those attributes. So if you're sitting on this 45-degree line, you're doing a good job of meeting the capabilities that you have. But there are spaces in here where you may have capabilities which were very strong, which were relevant maybe 5-10 years ago, but no more relevant. So really you've got this space which is below the 45-degree line. Above the 45-degree line is spaces for you to grow. Those are opportunities, meaning that you need them, they're important, but you're not there. So let's illustrate in case of a company and in a minute here, but fundamentally the priorities for development are on the top of the 45-degree line. What is below the 45-degree line is potential for reduction and reallocation of resources to sort of other areas. So let me walk you through an example here. The overall fit for this company is about 67%. But what you see is for a whole bunch of capabilities, they're pretty much on the 45-degree line. So they know how important it is, and their performance sort of meets the criteria. But they also have a bunch of capabilities that are above the 45-degree line, which sort of indicates these are capabilities that are required. It's really important to them to get there. But their performance currently today as we speak is not there, and this is something that they need to focus on next within that window of time that they're looking at. Below the 45-degree line, also you have these capabilities which they have traditionally been very strong at, invested, build those capabilities, but the changing nature of the market, changing the world, changing nature of competition has rendered them less important. So fundamentally, you can think of these capabilities as capabilities that perhaps need to be reassessed and either deleted, or you could sort of reallocate the resources that are available to other spaces in areas where they're lacking. So really running through this process is very important, allows them to get towards a fit score. So now you have a single fit score you can develop across your capabilities, you can get towards a fit score to see where you are, and it creates an opportunity for you to do a journey. So if you keep collecting this over time, you can see how you're traversing this fit and are you getting more and more fit to sort of compete in your marketplace to be successful to achieve your revenue profit goals that the marketing organization may be set to have. And what we do find with the research, this is about at this point about close to 350 companies that we have data on, that we're looking at. And what we do find is that as your fit gets better, the satisfaction level with your objectives, speed, growth, and I'm not replicating all of them here, but a bunch of objectives that you may have, revenue growth or profitability or customer engagement, those kinds of growth, the satisfaction with achieving those objectives get better. So there are many firms which are not particularly fit. So the dissatisfaction with where they are is very, very high. Companies that are very well fit, you can find satisfaction higher. So literally this sort of a largely linear sort of upwards in terms of as your fit gets better, your ability to achieve your objectives get much stronger. So we can get towards those sort of fit scores. So which then leads us towards this notion of what then is the role of marketing, and given these whole sets of capabilities that are required, or the modern marketing organization, given this whole set of capabilities that are sort of emerging required, there are some things the marketing organization leads. That's fundamentally what they do. Maybe it's all about experience, or it's all about exchange, or all about engagement. They particularly lead and they do it. There are some functions that some aspects of marketing that perhaps reside outside the marketing organization. Maybe the marketing organization does support. This support helps them, creates this coalition to achieve these things. Marketing is uniquely placed to be leading the coalition to sort of get there. And there are some aspects of marketing that marketing just needs to get out of the way. It's not who they are, it doesn't have the capabilities, maybe it's other parts of the firm, there are other functions of the organization that perhaps should lead those. Which then leads to decisions on what do we sort of insource and outsource. The structured decisions start coming in. What do we insource? What do we outsource? What new capabilities do we build? What do we not have today? What are some things that we need to build so that we meet our importance to performance objectives that we saw before? So we get better on that fit line. So what capabilities do we need? What partners do we have? What talent and partners do we need? Maybe we don't need to do it ourselves, but we could outsource it, and then we can create new partners to sort of achieve it for it. What new partners? Maybe there are increasingly these societal pressures that companies sort of face. As they face more and more of these societal pressures, maybe we need these NGO partnerships that we need to build to sort of compete in the marketplace and do very well. And so those partnerships will enable us to build the capabilities required to also deal with societal issues that currently we've been ignoring and hurting our organization. And that leads to what individual capabilities. So one are capabilities as an organizational level, the other one is what are individual competencies and skills. A lot of organizations fixate on this. This we think is further down this. It's not unimportant at all, but it's further down the spectrum to look at what individual capabilities and skills do we need to build in our employees, in our partners within the firm, and so forth. And then what capabilities do we upgrade and downgrade? These are all decisions that are part of this marketing mission overall. All become part of once you decide on your marketing mission to figure out which are the three E's: exchange, engagement, and sort of experience, that mix that you're looking at, and then what inside knowledge values did you do. Once your mission is very clear, then all of these questions can be sort of very well addressed for you as an organization. So how do you decide what's next for marketing? Just to design the modern marketing organization, you define the mission, assess the fit, and then design the changes that you need to make, reallocate resources, and so forth. All those decisions that we talked about briefly here. So that needs to happen. If you need to know more about our work, and we'll take questions as well, it just got published in the most recent journal of the Harvard Business Review. And so it's titled "The Framework for Aligning Growth is Your Marketing Organization Ready for What's Next?" And so this gives you a good sort of rich understanding of this research that I talked about as well, and insights for managers, for practice that they can put into play. If you're interested in the area of marketing capabilities itself and your responsibilities on the areas of marketing capabilities, and you're sort of interested in the topic, go to this site, www.markcaps.com, research, and so you will find that you can get a capability benchmark. You can get a capability benchmark. It's free for managers. You can do it. Any individual for a company can go out and do this, and you can get a benchmark that assessment that will tell you where your organization is today and how does it compare relative to sort of your industry and so forth. So it's a useful site to go on and do this. So it won't take much of your time, 20 minutes probably to get this done. If you're interested in capabilities as in general itself, also go to the Marketing Capabilities Institute that are there, where other practitioners who are in the industry, managers and so forth are there, and you can join the discussion on what capabilities are and think about the evolution of capabilities and how successful practice sort of work. So a couple of resources for you to sort of consider as you look through the process. Thank you very much for your patience to be there. I really appreciate this, and I'm open for questions at this point.
Thank you, Professor. We do have a couple of questions sent by the participants. So if you'd like, can I read out those questions to
Sure,
you?
please.
Yeah.
Please, thank you.
So one question from Mr. Raj Swaminathan is, for B2B business, how important is capability to understand the firm's customers' end consumers' preference on the parameters of engagement, experience, purpose, that is B2B2C?
Absolutely. Thank you, Raj, for the question. So this is the idea is that customers are at different levels. Increasingly, this notion of B2B and B2C has been extended out to B2B2C. So if you want to create value to your immediate customer, which is a business customer, a rich understanding of their customer becomes very, very critical. And the richer your understanding of their needs and their requirements and the ways in which your customer, which is your immediate business customer, adds value to them, will inform how you can create value for this customer. Could be a huge source of competitive advantage for you as well in the marketplace. So going all the way down the chain to get to the end consumer and having rich know about that is absolutely critical. And in today's environment, I think it's a lot easier to do that, and you can get rich insight about that, which may help you inform your customer as to new ways in which your offering can help them create value for their end customers.
Thank you, Professor. The other question is from Faisal Khan, who is asking how different or related marketing is with traditional product strategy and with digital product strategy.
Yeah, so at the initial part of my story was the fact that all of these capabilities are starting to emerge, and some of them are versions of them are becoming important part of the marketing function. But the key thing is all these capabilities, while important to the company, and different companies have different labels for them, they may either reside in the marketing department, or importantly, they may be things that marketing supports. And there are some of the capabilities that marketing may have little role to play. So the idea of a digital role, like you said, digital capabilities, or in terms of analytical capabilities, or traditional product marketing capabilities and so forth, which draws the voice of the customer back to the organization. So it may be a coalition of capabilities that or functions within the organization that marketing could support or lead and work towards the same end goal. Depending upon the organization, may embed it in the organization. In some organization, they reside elsewhere. But it's important for marketing to build the connections, to build the links, to build a coalition that achieves the end goal. So
Sure,
it doesn't have to be within the umbrella of a traditional marketing department.
Right, Prof. The other question is, in a small company, how many of these things can be applied? As in talking in the Indian context, some companies might not be using these digital ways of
Sure.
marketing so much. So how can these be implemented for them?
Sure. So the resource, even when you're a small company, resource sort of a challenge. If you look at a lot of these direct-to-consumer companies, many of them are actually relatively small compared to the mammoth chains, which are traditionally indirect. If you're going through wholesalers and other partners and channels, right? So, in fact, if you look at what digital capabilities allows you to do is to overcome the challenges of size and scale. And so it actually becomes incumbent on these smaller companies to start thinking about building those capabilities, either do it themselves or through partnerships. So they may leverage a platform that already exists that does a really good job of reaching out to consumers, and so they may have to work with a platform to sort of do this. But ideally, the way, if you want to overcome the downsides of scale, digital is perhaps a way for you to think about and get out of your current box. And
Absolutely.
the advantage of digital is that geography is now history. Your reach is not limited to your local geographies, and now it becomes more global.
Absolutely, Prof. The next question is, over the last few years, the lines between brand and performance marketing have been becoming increasingly blurry. Do you see that increasing? And how do companies prevent from getting lost chasing performance or slash growth marketing at the expense of brand? How can we build checks and balances within marketing function to prevent the same?
Yeah, this is one of the biggest challenges that companies that we work with, and my experience with, is the fact that these two camps are becoming very different. But at the same time, you also point out there are hope in the horizon in terms of blurring of these sort of lines, right? So what we find, I spent last weekend actually running a panel with some very large companies which face this sort of challenge, and one of the key issues that sort of come up is that the brand marketers are increasingly understanding that their survival depends on performance marketing, the ability to sort of look at attribution, doing closed loop in terms of figuring out where the investments are going and which investments pay off, which don't pay off. So they are seeing value from performance marketing. Performance marketers on the other side are very, very clear. How do I get more people at the top of the funnel? How do I get more and more people in? Only if people come in can I do the conversion very effectively and so forth. So they see the value of the brand as well. So that shared knowledge of value that each part, the performance marketing seeing value from the brand group, the brand with their storytelling capabilities, their ability to draw new and new consumers and richness and loyalty and so forth that they build, and brand marketing seeing the ability of performance marketing in terms of conversion ability, of quick acquisition in terms of varieties and growth and quick changes, and looking at closed loop sort of models. I think is both see value from each other. The ability to work together becomes increasingly easier, and that's been the experience of companies being successful. Is their ability to learn from each other in terms of what value they bring to the team, and how they can help each other.
Sure, Prof. This question was from Vidyut Raj Gopal, who is, I believe, your student, and he wanted me to tell you that. Um, the next question is, with marketing roles typically getting dispersed across different departments like product, digital strategy, etc. How do we look at implementing the strategy that you had explained right now?
Can you repeat that early part of this question? Sorry.
Sure. With marketing roles typically getting dispersed across different
Sure.
departments like product,
Sure.
digital strategy. Um,
Sure.
yeah,
Okay. So this is the idea that we talked about, that creates this sort of. You're exactly right, and that observation is right on with our experience as well. And the important thing here is the fact that that's why we said that you start off by looking at what your mission is for the organization. And once you decide what your mission is in terms of how you're going to create value for the customers, we talked about three different ways to create value for the customers. How you're going to create value to the firm, again, three different ways to create value for the firm. Once you're clear about what your strategy is, what your emphasis is, and what's your major, what's your minor on these capabilities, then you decide what capabilities you require and how to structure them. So that's going to be a guiding point. If I'm going to be very, very sort of exchange oriented, which is I'm going to acquire customers through building a lot of millions and millions of offers to individual customers, then the capabilities that require are very different. The capabilities that require are people with machine learning and big data skills and analytics skills in the organization, and they become really critical. I insource those capabilities and could provide supporting capabilities from elsewhere. If I'm going to be sort of very engagement focused, then brand building and storytelling and those traditional capabilities become more and more critical. And so my organization looks very, very different. So deciding your mission, your strategy up front will then guide you on your capabilities that you require and the structure that you put into place.
sure, Prof. There's one more question, Prof, which I'm not sure if it is relevant, but I'll still ask. And if it is not relevant, then you can let me know and we can take that offline. It says, I wanted to check on your views on what kind of triggers we should be keeping in mind while deciding on insourcing versus outsourcing, as there are attendant trade-offs to be made between capability building objectives and time to market issues.
Yeah, and so that tension inherently is the fact that outsourcing would be a lot quicker. Building it in house is going to take you significant periods of time. And my sense is that that choice also should be governed not just with time to market and the agility that's required to be in the marketplace, but also in terms of what your mission is. So if your mission is it's core to your mission to have those capabilities, then a consideration of having them in house may be more important than putting it outside the house through outsourcing. So it's not just the issue of, I think that issue of agility is critical. The agility of speed to market is critical. But at the same time, it's your mission should guide that as well. So it's a multi-factor decision that you have to draw.
Thanks, Prof. The last question that we have is, as marketing, especially product, is brand based, organizations are morphing into services. What are the challenges for structures, skills, and strategy?
So good question. So we started with this idea that if you're just a purely product focused company, then perhaps you built an exchange type model where your goal is to build a product that's appropriate for the group of customers. As you get into a service or a business, then it's a question of building your experience capabilities the customer requires. So your ability to go in and create value through rich experiences that customers sort of have, and we remove hassles and pain points across the journey. All of those things become part of the experience stack. So we call them as three stacks: exchange stack, experience stack, and engagement stack. So the experience stack becomes very critical as you build a service organization. And as you broaden out into solutions organization, then your engagement stack becomes critical, because now you need to get permission, so to speak, from customers to get into the solution space, for the customers to trust you as a solution partner and so forth. So building that engagement stack becomes very important. So you need to potentially transition from being a purely sort of exchange organization, exchange value creating stack, to building the other two stacks as well.
Perfect. I think we have gone through all the questions, Prof. And thank you so much for taking all the questions and answering them very thoroughly. It's time for the vote of thanks. So, as all good things come to an end, this webinar is also no exception. On
Ashok,
behalf,
can I just take a minute? I want to thank the audience. Thank you, folks, for putting this together. Really appreciate this.
Thank you, Prof.
And as well as the audience to be there, and a great set of questions. Virjit, I owe you one for this great question. Raj, I also appreciate that. I think if it's Raj Swaminathan, also an EFPM from ISB, appreciate that as well. And so thank you very much for these great questions, and for the others as well. And please do head towards those two locations, the Marketing Capability Institute, if you're interested in capabilities, and if you want to get an assessment, get to the other site as well. And hopefully they add value to your particular jobs. And thank you again.
On my own behalf and behalf of ISB CBM and ISB, we'd like to really thank Professor Sundar Bharadwaj. He does really state-of-the-art work, cutting-edge work, and it's really nice that he carved out this time to share his emerging knowledge with us. This is really top class. Thank you. And it's very aspirational for Indian organizations to get there. Those who do it will be the winners in this whole new world. So with that, we'll sign off, and we look forward to your continued support, Professor Sundar.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you, professors. I'll just take a minute. I would also like to thank the ISB staff members who had helped in organizing this webinar and reaching out to the participants in a seamless manner. And a big thank you to all the participants, as Professor Sundar has already said, who have joined today and taken their time from their busy schedule. I hope you've all found this useful. I would just like to mention that we are planning to organize a longer program on this topic. We will send an announcement to all of you when the plan gets finalized. And you can send us your queries to the email address, which I'll just be entering in our chat box. So please stay safe from the pandemic and have a great evening ahead. Thank you, professors, and thank you, everyone, once again.
Thank you very much. Yeah.